Good evening. My name is Edward Sanshin Oberholzer. I'm the resident priest and guiding teacher here at the Joseph Priestley Zen Sangha in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania. We're part of Empty Moon Zen. I'm going to go out on a limb here and talk about bald-faced lies, misrepresentations, falsehoods, or perhaps just fictions. We all know the precepts, those elusive and impossible guides that many of us have vowed to uphold. The first five, those traditionally taken as a first step, and in early Buddhism, held to bind the laity. These tell us not to kill, not to steal, not to misuse sex, not to lie, and not to cloud the mind. There are an additional five, but these five give me what I need to be concerned about tonight, the whole package, along with the three pure precepts. And the three refuges are traditionally given to lay practitioners in most American Zen schools as a kind of lay ordination in the ceremony of Jukai. Now, while I remember the fourth grave precept as telling us not to lie, it would seem I've been mistaken. Here's the formulation, traditionally ascribed to Bodhidharma. I'm going to guess that he was long dead before it was written down in this form, but in crediting him with this, by assuring you that this is what he said, I'm already speaking falsely and am, in that sense, in violation of it. As it comes down to us in our Jukai ceremony, the fourth precept goes, self-nature is subtle and mysterious. In the realm of the inexplicable Dharma, not preaching a single word is called the precept of not speaking falsely. The Dharma wheel turns and turns. There is neither surplus nor lack. The whole universe is moistened with nectar. The truth is ready to harvest. Listening and speaking from the heart, I vow to take up the way of not speaking falsely. There. Now that I've laid it out, allow me to violate it wholeheartedly, because it would seem simply opening my mouth is speaking falsely. There is a reason we refer to these as the impossible vows. Every word we say violates this precept, for no word can encompass the world in which we live. No word can do it justice. No word can express even the simplest of our experiences. Every word is false. Every word violates this precept. And what would you expect from the man who is reputed again, long after he died, to have said that Zen is a special precept, a special transmission outside words and texts? Yes, the fourth precept tells us not to lie. It might also forbid writing fiction, or giving the wrong answer on a multiple choice exam, but above all, it tells us that to open your mouth is to speak falsely. So much for preaching the orthodox, or, for that matter, the heterodox. But we're storytelling animals. We understand the world around us. We understand each other through this tainted medium of language. The Dharma is a gift that lives through being passed on, and passed on through words and texts, the very ones that Bodhidharma tells us are not that special transmission. Diane Katagiri famously wrote a book entitled, You Have to Say Something. And this is exactly what I was told when I became a Dharma teacher. Just get out there and talk. Say something. Lay your heart out. John Cage, the composer and fellow traveler on the way, wrote, What we demand is silence, but what silence demands is that I go on talking. So let's hear how Mahasattva Fu engaged the fourth precept and listen to silence's demands. In case 67 of the Blue Cliff Record, Mahasattva Fu expounds the sutra. We hear, Emperor Wu of Liang invited Mahasattva Fu to lecture on the Diamond Sutra. On the rostrum, Mahasattva Fu struck the lectern once with his stick and immediately climbed down. The emperor was astounded. Master Ji asked, Your Majesty, do you understand? No, the emperor responded, I do not. Mahasattva Fu has finished the lecture. That Sufi poet and Islamic bodhisattva, Rumi, reminds us that silence is the language of God. All else is poor translation. But I promised to overstep my bounds, and unlike the Mahasattva, I'm not interested at this moment in the just this of slamming my cuts on the rostrum. So when I think of the precepts, when I think of not speaking falsely, the first thing that stands out is that pronoun I. I vow to take up the way of not speaking falsely. The Dharma tells us that this I, this self that vows, is a fiction, a useful, an essential fiction. It allows us to muggle through the day-to-day relative world in which we live. It keeps us from walking into the wall, from burning our hands on the stove, from forgetting to eat when we feel hunger. As essential as it is nonetheless false. A fiction cobbled together from the various bits and pieces of our histories, our experiences, our sensations and perceptions. I vow. And what is a vow, if not an expression of intention? It's difficult to think of a vow without a vower. Difficult to imagine an intention without a self engaging in intending. Perhaps a little easier to imagine thought without a thinker. But even if vowing, thinking, intending exist without a vower, a thinker, an intender, to what does karma attach? Karma requires two things. Dependent origination, because that happens. Dependent origination seems like common sense. Everything that I do, every act I perform impacts everything else. It almost seems too simple to warrant such a complex term as dependent origination. I touch my cat the wrong way, and he sinks his claws into my hands. He didn't do that, at least not just now. I toss a pebble into a pond and watch the ripples fan out across the surface. Just one more way of pointing out that we're all interconnected. What could be more obvious? It's intention, that second and vital part of karma that I have difficulty with, and where I find myself at odds with the fourth precept. For if I am the sum total of the causes and conditions which impinge upon me, if both nature and nurture combine to sum up all that I am, if my very self is a fiction, albeit a convenient, a vital fiction, then where does intention reside? How can intention be anything other than a fiction itself, even if another convenient and useful fiction? Who or what intends? It seems to me, and here I use me, in a loose sense. It seems to me that we often mistake the chaotic nature of our lives as a place from which that intention emerges. Look, however much I will, I can't find that mind from within from which intending emerges. When I can't find anything else to determine why I act as I do, then this so-called intention must account for how things work out or not. Even if we are the sum total of all of our causes and conditions, dependent origination does not imply determinism. The future is not laid out and immutable. There are just too many inputs. Trying to keep track of three interacting bodies, much less the myriad causes and conditions that rule our lives, and the future is lost in that very chaos. Now, I don't know where this falls on the orthodox, heterodox side. A simple, perhaps the simplest orthodox view is that straightforward line from the five remembrances. My deeds are my closest companions. I am the beneficiary of my deeds. My deeds are the ground on which I stand. I choose to act. I intend to act. I vow to act. And these choices, intentions, and vows create the karmic consequences of my actions. But if our selves are fictions, if we are the sum of all those causes and conditions, then the intention that gives rise to good or bad karma is not to be found. Karma is then simply actions and reactions. Billiard balls striking billiard balls, a simple if-then statement translated to the real world. And I have found I may have led you all astray, or not. The Dharma is a living body. It grows and flourishes no matter what I say. So, have I violated that impossible fourth precept? By opening my mouth, have I spoken falsely? Wittgenstein would counsel, along with Bodhidharma, whereof one cannot speak, thereof one must be silent. But category riposte with that. You have to say something. And Ehe Hakuin, Zenji, bless him, would have said that I've already spoken too much. Thank you.